Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got the birthday boy in the house, too.
Welcome to the May 7th Post Falls City Council meeting. Shannon, please note that all council members are present. And tonight we have a couple of announcements. Next Sunday is Mother's Day, and happy birthday to my mom, my wife, and all the moms out there. Men, please treat them special, because you're lucky to have them. The Second Harvest Mobile Market will have a free food distribution on Thursday, May 16th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Kootenai County Fire and Rescue at 5271 East Celtice Way in Post Falls. For anyone in need of food assistance, no appointment or documentation needed. Please bring your own box or bag. Downtown for a Day celebration will be on Saturday, May 18th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The city is creating a downtown street for residents to come and explore the future Post Falls downtown district. This is a free family event that will include local businesses and food booth, storefronts, pop-up Saturday market, beer hall, music, street acts, a cornhole tournament, and much more. The summer outdoor movies will kick off with Mary Poppins Returns at 8 p.m., and it is at Spokane Street and 3rd. And tonight we have two presentations. The first is the CityLink presentation. Names for the record as you do, please.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Amber Conklin. I am the Program Specialist for Paratransit and Ring-A-Ride Senior Services for CityLink. With me is Chad Engel, the Program Specialist for the Fixed Route Services, as well as our Program Manager, Kim Riley, and our Director, Jody Bees, Director of Resource Management. Thank you. So our mission is to create a community mobility system that is efficient and safe, and we are doing that utilizing technology and innovative thinking and partnerships. Our goals are to increase our capacity and service to the citizens while striving for sustainability. We have three regular route systems. The A route goes into the core area of Coeur d'Alene, the B route out to Post Falls, and the C route covers Hayden and Dalton Gardens. In addition to the regular routes in that beige area around there, that's 3/4 of a mile around the fixed route or the regular route system. By federal law, we have to provide paratransit services. In that paratransit zone and extending out into those green areas is the Ring-A-Ride program, and that's a senior ride for programs. A program for seniors that are experiencing mobility issues, and that allows them to transport in to get food, medical appointments, and socialization activities.
So for technology, we have ETA Spot, which gives our passengers some real-time ability to track buses and the stops. So this is actually live right now on ETA. So you can click on the bus and you can get the times when it's anticipated to be to the next stop. And then you can also click on the stops as they're upcoming to see when the bus is going to be arriving as well. So along with the ETA, we have now become a part of Google Maps, which is a very exciting accomplishment for CityLink as well as many other transit agencies out there. It's quite nice to be able to now take your route and you can just plug in your origin and destination and you just click on this right here, the bus icon, and it'll give you your transit destination, how to navigate through the system. So it's very nice, very, very good integration of our system into it. And through the integration with Google Maps, it enables us to explore even more innovation options to extend the efficiency and accessibility of our service area. So this leads into things such as microtransit, which is an on-demand transportation mode connecting regular routes with passengers where they are. What we are most excited about is an app which will give all available modes of transportation, both public and private, in a single source payment option. This will enable us to leapfrog traditional collection systems and leverage technology in a much cheaper and option for fare collection.
It's a good thing all four of us didn't come up at once. Our primary focus in public transportation is in 4 areas. The first of those being education. As you can see on the slide, the highest utilized bus stop in the entire system is the Post Falls Library, so yay for that. The other areas are job training and employment, healthcare, and recreation. Our future goals include expanding access to job training at K-Tech and on the Prairie and NIC in Post Falls, and creating commuter routes that may include non-traditional work hours and shifts. And we're hearing that from employers, so that's, going to be part of our program planning. Thank you. The Riverstone Transit Center is slated to be completed in August, and we look forward to having this facility as a hub for not only our riders and buses, but also for rideshare and commuter programs. We will continue to have discussions with law enforcement to make sure that this remains a safe and family-friendly environment for everyone. We have plans this year to meet with the city officials and engineers to work together to identify key bus stops that are good locations for bus shelters. And these are scalable. They come in 2 different sizes, and we'll prioritize those placements based on ridership and city input.
So when we previously presented to you, we had our estimated ridership, which came in at 142,000 for 2018. Our number counts have been separated from CityLink South, and this has caused the impression that our ridership as a whole has been down, which in fact, CityLink North has been seeing year-over-year gains over the past 2 years. We are being good stewards of public funding that we receive. We are significantly below the national average of $4.68 on the regular bus route, compared to $3.58 for CityLink on our average cost per trip. And then for paratransit, you can see the national average at $37.69, and for us, we're at $25.03.
While we usually report financial...
Can we get your name, please?
Oh, sorry, Kimberly Riley, the program manager. While we usually report financial information for our system as a whole, Chad and Amber took a step outside of that box in preparation for a discussion with Shelley and your financial team earlier this year. Utilizing the ETA data that he mentioned earlier by bus stop, they calculated public transportation operating expense per trip by city. They then determined the cost per citizen based on your population, since that's how we determine your contribution rate. This information was well received, and we would like to share it with you. So the first 2 bars here reflect the paratransit and regular route operating expenses for Post Falls. The 3rd bar showing a combined cost per citizen of $6.87. If those expenses were to remain flat, just for a comparison, the proposed contribution of $1.74 per citizen would fund 25% of our operating expenses for your city. Currently, that number is 14.86%. In addition to our increasing operating expenses, we utilize our annual apportionment to fund purchase and preventive maintenance of our fleet, security equipment, and planning. In order to maximize the benefit of this non-competitive funding, we bank dollars for capital expenses. We have reached the point where additional support from the local jurisdictions is needed to sustain current operations and plan for the future. A 3% annual increase through FY24 is proposed on the handout that was given to you as a supplement. We would not be where we are without your contribution, and I appreciate your consideration of our request.
So public transportation is truly for everyone. People getting to their jobs, students going to schools, and families taking their children out on outings. And these are the members of the team that make public transportation possible. Thank you for your time and support, but we also wanted to share with you the thank yous we received from citizens, because the thank yous are really to you. I want to tell you a little bit more about the paratransit program, and that paratransit program as expensive as it is providing key quality of life issues for people that cannot utilize the regular bus system. We meet with each individual on both the Ring and Ride Senior Program and the Paratransit Program to ensure that we're serving the people that need it the most. And they truly cannot use the regular bus and have no other transportation form. And so providing that is often life-saving. One of the people that I talked with recently, actually this month, asked me to share a comment with you. She said her husband is very ill, and he'd been ill for quite some time, and she needed to continue to work, so she couldn't transport him to his medical appointments. But she called and said, I've retired now at the end of May, and I can take him to his dialysis appointments myself, but I wanted to share with you how truly life-saving this service was, so thank you. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Couple comments. First of all, I think that CityLink provides very needed service, but I've got some concerns, so I'll get with Jason, there's Jason, and Shelley, because I've not looked at the numbers yet. But when we had the discussion about the new facility, and I know there was some funding dollars that were available, we talked about the concern was the increase in costs. And I received a phone call fairly recently from a resident of Post Falls who used to have a stop out at his mobile home park. That stop has now gone away. So what I'm seeing, and this is just general terms, don't mean it as a criticism, but I'm seeing a 70% increase in funding requests for this fiscal year. I'm hearing that we cut routes in Post Falls. I'm seeing a big, beautiful new building being built. So I've got to look at the numbers before I can say I'm totally on board, because that's a huge increase, 70% increase in 1 year. And I appreciate the breakdown that you gave, but again, I need to get with staff and take a look at it, because those numbers scare me, to be honest with you. So just I'm not trying to be negative, I'm not trying to be rose-colored glasses, but those are my concerns. And Jason, I would like to visit with you and Shelley about those numbers that you have. So just to let you know.
Jody Bees, you would like to talk with you about, sure. I'm guessing about some of the route changes.
Well, I guess I would want to answer some of your concerns, if I may, whether it's at this platform or when you're discussing, so we can at least provide you some additional information that you might need.
Council, you want to hear anything now, or would you rather do it in?
We're more than happy to meet with you at a workshop or whatever you think is appropriate.
What's your pleasure?
Either way, I'd like to know have some of the same questions that you do, Mr. Mayor.
Workshop would be better.
Workshop, okay.
Perfect.
So we'll
We'll
set
be
one
more
up
than
with
happy
you?
to. That'd be great.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Bob, thank you. Bob, you can get that taken care of?
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next up is the Avista presentation on gas line replacement. And again, name for the record, please.
Yeah. Jeremy Radeski with Avista, project coordinator. Mayor, city council members, customers, I just wanted to take the opportunity to meet with you guys and kind of explain a little bit about our program and what we're trying to do for the customers in the area. We currently have, gas to a lot of customers, and with that, we have pipe that is expiring or getting old and needs maintained and needs replaced, and so our program allows us to do that. So I'll kind of briefly go through the slideshow. If anybody has any questions, go ahead, feel free to stop me at any time. Basically, our program, we're looking at natural gas main pipe that's 1.25 inch to 4 inch diameter, that's installed between 1964 and 1987, and it's a DuPont product that we've been told has in certain areas started to leak, and we do not want that to happen in any of our areas. So we're being proactive. This map kind of just shows a little bit of an overall for all of our projects going on. Obviously circled is West Post Falls coming up in 2020, right around the corner, and 2021. Some of those dates are dependent upon other projects being completed. For example, we have obviously Coeur d'Alene up there as well for 2020, and that one needs to finish because we're working in there right now. So before we come and start another project, we want to get that one complete. Some of the technology that we use, most people in that upper left picture are familiar with like open trench. That's pretty invasive, a lot of asphalt restoration, a lot of impact to customers. And so we're utilizing kind of that directional drilling in the middle and split and pull picture off to the right. As you can kind of see below those pictures, I mean, the footprint is a lot smaller and it seems to be better for customers and our municipalities. We also are utilizing keyhole and soft surface. Below are a couple, keyhole restorations. They're basically, circles in the asphalt, cores that come out and they go back in after there's compaction underneath the ground. And what we've kind of found, just real quick on the keyholes, is sometimes they're stronger because the ground underneath those is more compact than maybe the rest of the road base underneath the asphalt. And so we want to make sure there's good road base underneath those when we're putting those back to make sure that there's not failing going on around that. This is kind of a overall map. I apologize if it's not very clear, but we're looking at that box in yellow there, and within that box there's smaller boxes with grids. Those are actually what we call the phases, and when we have our contractor that's working for us replacing that gas main, we have them work within those phases and get a phase control where we have them get a phase complete before they move on to another phase, so they're not getting strung out, so we don't have a bunch of work happening at once. And this map is just a little bit different view, maybe a little easier to see with the ortho. Those red boxes are those phases that I was talking about, and within those there's segments of pipe that need to be replaced. We're looking at about 9.67 miles for over the 2 years of 2020 to 2021. The earliest that we're looking to kind of start anything would be the end of this year to start potholing a couple locations where we have pipe that we're not 100% sure if it falls in that date criteria, and that would be doing a pothole on the side of the street or wherever we can do that's less invasive, and hopefully not have to replace whole segments of pipe by finding that information out. We strive to have our customer complaints to a minimum. Obviously, we're serving our customers. Our program, we kind of come in uninvited, and sometimes, with that being said, you don't have the customers' support, and they're not asking you to be there, so they find they want satisfaction. So we're looking to make sure that we don't have any noise or disruption, that we're on site, keeping the job site clean, and leaving it the way that we found it. We leverage communication prior to us getting there. We start that with meetings like this, meeting with the municipality to make sure they don't have any other projects up and coming, so we can coordinate that to make sure we're not getting in after a road's been freshly paved, because we know that costs a lot of money. We perform our work with respect and care, and some of these communication that we've learned through the years and developed is basically internal communication coordination with our other Avista employees, and then the municipalities as well. Permit coordination, town hall meetings, and then we send out customer letters typically a year in advance, and then we like to make sure the customers know that we're coming and kind of what to expect. I'll have an example of that on the next slide. Basically, we have door hangers if can't make customer contact. We have a web page that customers can go to. So we're trying to provide a lot of ways to keep people informed and to make sure that they know what's going on. This is kind of a brief overview of what our website looks, where customers can go kind of to see what to expect. The contractor's name, gives a brief description of work that might be happening if they start seeing equipment, and explanations of the work that's going to be done in front of their house. So, anybody have any questions or?
As a city, didn't we enter into an agreement where all the utilities providers were working with the city so we could determine if we were going to be opening up a street, if the open trench had to be dug, that it was all coordinated?
So we've adopted a policy a couple years ago regarding essentially street cuts, and so we have that in place.
Yeah, good.
Are you referring to like pavement cut policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a question. Is this going to be seasonal work then? Do you have like a time period you'll be doing it?
Great question. Yeah, so obviously, you know, with our weather, sometimes it's a little unpredictable, but our typical construction season is like April 1st to October 15th. We want to, you know, start after or around when the asphalt plants open up and then shut down before the asphalt plants, so they obviously have time to get in there and complete the road restoration before the snow hits. Yeah.
Do you have an idea, I know it's probably case by case, but once you start digging into the ground in front of somebody's house, how long are you going to be there? I mean, is it like 24 hours? Or?
So there is a process to the work that needs to happen. So we're, you know, briefly, I don't want to get into too much detail and take too much time, but we're essentially, you know, installing the new main, gassing that up, tying over the existing services that are on the old main to the new main, and then abandoning the old existing. So with our phase control, we try and do about 3,000 feet at a time. That fluctuates a little bit, and then depending on that size, there's on average about 20 to 25 customers. So within that 3,000 feet, 25 customers, it's from start to finish, and that's, you know, when they first get there to when asphalt is complete, is about 6 to 8 weeks. And so, you know, it seems like a long stretch. There's not constantly, between that 6 to 8 weeks, there's not constantly something going on, but because of the scope of the project, it's not a 24-hour, you know, in and out type of thing. I wish it was, but.
Okay. Appreciate the the approximation.
Yeah.
Any other
Perfect.
questions?
I'm good.
Great.
Well, thank you guys. I
Very much.
appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none.
Do we have any declarations of conflict? Linda?
I'll recuse myself from new business item number E, please.
Thank you very much. Bob, you want to present the consent calendar, please?
Yes, sir. Minutes of April 16th, 2019 for the City Council meeting. April 9th, 2019 through April 29th, 2019. Request by various departments to dispose of equipment and a vehicle. Request by the Park and Recreation Division to surplus old lights from Quad Park. Dolores First Edition subdivision plat application. Contract with BC Engineering for engineering services at Black Bay Depot. Contract with Evan Ferguson Concrete for curbs and sidewalk at the 4th Avenue parking lot. Contract with BCR Land Services for the excavation of the 4th Avenue parking lot. Purchase of a shelter for place space for the park in the Meadows, and a revised contract for Blacks Inc. for a cultured stone installation at Tullamore Picnic Shelters.
Any questions on the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second. Motion seconds. Further discussion? Shannon, take the roll, please.
Thorson?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Borders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is public hearings, and tonight we have none, followed by unfinished business, and that is the contract with Greenplay for professional and consulting services for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Mr. Fair.
Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening. I'm before you tonight to ask for your approval of a contract for professional services with Greenplay LLC for our new updated master plan. And this was first brought before you in January of this year. Since that time, staff, and when I say staff, I mean Brian, who's more in the brunt, well, I've been gone, and I do appreciate it, has worked on soliciting the bids, obtaining them. Other staff members have helped him evaluate them, and then from there, the Greenplay was selected, and then a contract was negotiated. This was they're the ones who did our first master plan in 2012. We're 2 years past that 5-year plan. A couple of things that are different in this one is we will be also adding a little bit, looking at urban forestry, looking at pathways, and also looking at our staffing and organizational levels and plan in there. So that's a plus over the existing. We also have a couple ad alternates in there, one for studying a community center, and the second one looking at the downtown space. The community center was part of the original plan, but the time just wasn't right. We weren't ready for it, but I can tell you the inquiries we get, the push from the public from our side, the interest is there, and we need to know what's going on before we find sites or we start looking real hard on obtaining land. So I'm open for any questions.
Dave, you said the last one was a 5-year plan. Is this 5? I thought I read it was 10.
That was one of the things I put. You can never, it becomes, in some cases, I don't want to say wish list, but it's everything that is brought in that the public would like to see, areas that we're not serving, things that fall within the city's strategic plan or comprehensive plan, other inputs. So it gets added in. And we truly don't have enough money to do everything, nor enough staff time to do it all. And sometimes the time just isn't right. Wayfinding was a big one in the last one because of the strategic plan. Well, you kind of need to have your downtown developed and some other items in there to make the ability to put in a good wayfinding system. So it didn't happen. We don't know if it'll happen on this next one either, but.
Well, the reason I ask the question is it's a big number.
It's a big number.
It's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just want to make sure, I guess, that, first of all, you select Greenplay. Did you not qualify any of the bidders and then negotiate the contract? Is that how you did it? Look at the qualifications and find the one that was qualified and then go with the contract? And my
Correct.
question is this price in line?
I think it is. If we look at what Meridian spent just last year, they were at about $150,000. If you look at Sandpoint, which just went into one, and not as much as we have, I believe it's $120. Also give you perspective, with the last one we did in 2012, it was $120,000.
This is 170.
170. It's 120 for the base, but then when you add the community center, that's like 39,000. When we're pricing it out, we want to add it because mobilization is a key issue, so we're saving money there. That's about 20,000. From the plans we're seeing around the area, and when I say area northwest, the type of plan for this, it's not drawing out the construction documents. It's simply saying, here's operational things, here's footprint, here's consideration and needs. You're looking at about anywhere from 60 to 100,000 seems to be the average going out there. When we look at all our other design and professional services, we're looking at the 19,000 for that downtown looking. It becomes very, very cheap in comparison. You have a market that's very tight right now.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been called cheap by council, frugal by others. I don't like spending this anymore, but I also recognize it's saving us money in the long run.
Well, and you just have to get your arms around it because every time we look at a project, we're paying large planning fees, large consulting fees,
Yeah.
and I think I'm in the wrong business, but I just wanted to make sure that you feel that the price that you received was competitive.
I feel it's very competitive. I also feel that we're getting more for our money than we did the last time. That's where we're able to add, looking at the urban forestry, that component, the pathways, looking at our staffing benchmarks. And I can compare it to what Meridian just paid and what Sandpoint's getting, so.
Okay. Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, Dave, I just got a question on the community center part of it.
Mhm.
Now, are you looking at just a community center, or are they going to be looking at a community center with a community pool also on that?
That will really come from public input. So a pool, I'm guessing, from feedback I've had from people, will come up, but it'll include the operational costs and long-term costs. So this actually, what they offered was far more extensive than I probably would have done for the first time, but I think the price is so good for the breadth of what they're looking at that it's money well spent.
So they're including their cost projections and what it would cost for the maintenance issues of it?
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I know pool's always a big wish list, but then when you
Yeah.
start getting into the maintenance costs, it's,
Yeah.
Okay, Carrie?
I vote for the pool. On the master plan, the last time this was done was 2012,
Correct.
but this one that you're doing now, you're projecting that that will be good through 2030?
Correct. Well, that's one of the things when we went out and talking to them is the standard is a five-year plan, and that's just, it's a number that's there. I don't necessarily agree with it. Matter of fact, I don't agree with it. So we talked to them about taking a longer range, recognizing that, you know, there's only so much money we have to spend, and we have to stretch these things out. And what we'll do is have a mechanism in there so it can be reviewed and updated, which they should be. These are living, breathing documents. It's not something there to hold the door open or to be up on the bookshelf and looking pretty. It's what we need to use. And I'd like to say that for the last one we did, we actually accomplished a lot of the things on that. We didn't get the wayfinding, and that's okay. There's some things that you have to push yourself with, and you may or may not accomplish.
Yeah, I was just looking at the time frame. So
Longer time frame.
this would, it's reasonable to say that this will be viable until 2030?
Yes. We may have to tweak it here or there, but then Park and Rec Commission will be involved with that, and you folks will be involved with that.
Might not be us folks, but.
Okay.
and Dave, if I'm correct, your master plan has to be up to date when you're applying for any federal funds or
Any
land and
federal
water
funds.
conservation grants.
Yeah.
You have to show that you've updated your master plan with a certain
Correct.
period of time in order to apply for
Yeah.
those federal funds or state funds, don't you?
Okay. Any other questions? Joe?
So I don't really care if it's statistical or anecdotal, but do you have any evidence or support that the money we spent in 2012 actually ended up saving us money over the last 7 years?
Do I have a hard, fast number? No. Do I know that we were able to focus staff time and energy into some of those areas? If you look at even some of the stuff with the river, obtaining that, some of the community forests, looking at how we were able to approach land acquisitions, going from my chicken scratches and the ruler and boxing it to actually showing GIS data and analytics that supported it better. We're able to focus it. It's not like we're starting here, and moving around. We're moving in a common direction.
I share the same concern as the mayor, that it's a whole lot of cash that we're, asking the taxpayers to pony up, and there's, I could see conceptually where you can better focus fewer resources when you have a plan to go off of, but even if there are some anecdotal examples of, hey, if we hadn't have done this, we would have had to spend all kinds of money messing around with this, then that really eases my mind for trying to take more money out of the taxpayer. So
Can I call a friend real quick?
That's the audience.
Okay. This is probably why, I've had Brian doing all this. Reminded me with Tullamore Park, because we had that into our last master plan and looking at that section, we were able to leverage that into an LWCF, Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. It's a federal pass-through, and that was $230,000 that the city obtained for it. As we move forward, we look at the sports complex, we'll be going back after those bunnies. It's becoming very competitive because there's fewer and fewer grants. Community forests, if we look at some of those trail grants and stuff.
So there's definitely hard evidence that the work that was done in 2012 more than paid for itself in grants received because the work was done.
Yes.
All right. There.
And
That's a perfect anecdote. Thank you.
Good friend.
That's why we phoned a friend, and if I'd had a couple cups of coffee like I normally do before council, it would have been right there, but I'm trying to do water and be good.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dave, I guess,
Yes.
just like everybody else, I'm a little concerned about the price tag. Is this like a start over? Are we starting over? Are we building on the plan that we had from 2012?
We're building on it, and that was one of the concerns of going to another group. And we had three, and one of them just did not have the skills or to meet the minimum. It's fewer and fewer companies doing this because they're all so busy. We contacted a few big ones in the Northwest, and the response was kind of like, we don't have time, and it's not a big enough system. But that's what was appealing on this. They understand us. They understand Idaho, even though they're out of Colorado. They're doing a lot of work up here. Their track record is good, but they were able to offer us, here's what we can do, taking what we already know about you and building on that. So with even the GIS, some of that information, and working within our system. So.
Okay. Steve, you have one?
And I might help a little because I stood in Dave's shoes. And when I got those same numbers, I'd take a deep breath and say, how am I going to present this to the council? But I also had the privilege of serving on the Land and Water Conservation Board for the state of Idaho over a 6-year period. And the cities that came in with master plans, up-to-date data, schematics, they usually rose to the top to receive the grants. And the cities that didn't have master plans, you're pretty much put down on a lower level just because you can't meet the state criteria. The state goes through all this first before they give it to the board. And other grants out there is your trails. You know, there's lots of, actually there's more money, I think, for off-road trails and bike trails sometimes than there are for parks. But you do need an up-to-date master plan even to get to first base with the committees and get your grant through.
I think that speaks volumes, you know, when you can state that we saved $250,000.
Even foundations now are requiring this. Everybody wants to know that you really know what you're doing and you're not just
Winging it.
flying by the seat of your pants.
Any other questions, Dave? If not, we do need to take action on this, so I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the contract with Green Play for the professional and consulting services for the Parks and Rec Master Plan.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Borders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Thorson?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks.
Thank
Dave.
you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is citizens' issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding a city-related issue that is not on the agenda. Anyone wishes to testify, please come forward. I see Chief coming forward.
Been a while. Should we all sing?
Is it like your birthday today, Chief?
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Well, the present is we're not going to sing.
That's not
yet.
why I'm up here, by the way.
Send your gifts to
Warren Merritt for the record. I'm really up here just to spend a couple minutes about the mobile market that's going to be hosted here on May 16th. It's another partnership between the Post Falls Police Department and Kootenai Fire and Rescue. But what's also important is for the public to know that this is being funded through private donations. And those donations are managed through the Post Falls Community Volunteers, which is a nonprofit agency that was established by Scott Hogue, Pat Knight, and myself. And we're the same group that does the parade. And this is a way for us to give back to the community. This free food distribution is being done at Kootenai Fire and Rescue, but I thought it was just important to just talk a minute about how the money gets pulled together so that folks don't think we're using tax dollars to give away food. But this also is funded by Caldwell Banker Bain, via Linda Wellham, Burks Klein DKI, Selkirk Construction, Cisco, the UPS store, and then Numerica. And any food that's not distributed will then be given to the Post Falls Food Bank when it's all done. So this is a rain or shine event. We ask people to bring a box, and I think that that's all I want to say
How
about
many
it.
years have you done this, Chief?
Well, actually, we've been doing this this is our third year. Last year, we were able to host one in the fall, but that was sponsored by Walmart. We simply did it at the fire district down at the training center.
Well,
But it's something that we're trying to do once or twice a year.
I was able to participate in the first one, and the number of people you helped and the gratitude they had was amazing. So thanks for your efforts, and hopefully it'll be a big success.
I'm sure it will, and let's hope for good weather, too. That always helps us a bunch. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Paying him off.
Bob Flowers, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm before you tonight to ask for some help. We have such a mess going on right now along Ross Point Road and Maplewood, and it's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. Now, they do have all their nice little streets in their new development, all paved. But Ross Point Road, Maplewood, hasn't been touched, hasn't been prepped or anything. Now, they've been given multiple extensions on this project for closing these roads off and that. And they have created a gigantic headache for anybody that lives along Ridgewood, because it's turned it into the new Ross Point Road, which means 40 miles an hour plus. But I would think that the city would make them fix the public right-of-way before they start laying their new streets in their development. And they haven't even prepped them. They're not, their compaction is junk. It's already caving in some places. And they need to get that road back open again. And I'm here tonight because several of my neighbors asked me to speak on this. I mean, it's getting insane. I mean, those vibrating rollers and that, they're vibrating stuff right off of people's shelves and walls in the neighborhood. It's ridiculous, and the traffic is getting worse. And they're not making any progress on Ross Point. Every day I drive by there at least twice a day. And I just think that they could fix the public right away before they start laying all their new asphalt into their development, if it's available to them. Thank you. Bill?
Mayor and council, the contractor and the developers on that project has had some challenges getting private utilities moved. You know, those not sewer and water services that are owned by the city, but, you know, services that are owned by other utilities that have franchise agreements within the city. There's been a lot of difficulty in getting those guys moved, getting them coordinated. There's been some stuff that's mismarked and a few things like that. So that's what's really has kind of delayed the schedule, and since they've been waiting for the private utilities to get in there and move, they've been focusing on, well, we've got equipment here, we need to keep moving. The last schedule that we have is that they're going to be in there Monday morning prepping, and their goal is to be out of there and have the project paved up next year. So it's just been because of the complication with so much other existing utilities within that existing right-of-way along Avista and Ross Point has just slowed their efforts down.
Thanks, but would you bring back an update for us the next meeting?
Yeah, be glad to.
Thank you.
Also, the question I have is why wasn't that coordinated in advance?
I think that, you know, sometimes they do the best they can, and they're, you know, sometimes location of things aren't exactly where you planned for them to be when you were in design. So I think they had spoken with and coordinated probably with some of those utilities, but they probably, when they got out there digging and doing some excavation work, that things were not exactly as they thought they were in the design plan. So,
Stupid question, is Maplewood in city limits now, or is that still county right there?
At that location there, the portion by the frontage of this project has been annexed into the city, so that portion is within the city limits that they're working on right now.
So what kind of leverage do we have with the utilities as they have franchise agreements with us to?
We've had a lot of internal discussions and are going to have discussions with the utilities and also at our future pre-construction meetings that impact major roadways like this, having the utilities at the table telling us that we're under contract and we can move in accordance with this time schedule. So we have had some internal discussions too about the nature of the project with this, and that they have their forces assigned to us. Some of them, we do have franchise agreements, but there's not specific, you know, timeframes and dates that need to be in there. If we're going to allow those folks within the right of way, we also have to allow them to come in and do maintenance on their facilities and move as well, so.
And did I hear you right? You said they were going to wrap up the paving next year?
No, next week.
Okay, that's better.
I apologize if I said
That scared the hell out of me.
It's a year.
Way better now.
I apologize, you feel better now? So, I apologize for that. That's what we have told, so we've been inquiring with them, they intend to be in the first of next week, and we've been told by the end of the week, they hope to have the project paved up. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I apologize if I raised your blood pressure.
Well, Mr. Flowers
I almost
didn't
said
jump
hearts.
up, but we did hear it, so. But
thank you.
again, this has been an ongoing, so please bring back
It
that
has.
project.
We've had some internal discussions about how we can minimize this occurrence in the future, and some of it is just the nature of construction when you've got underground utilities, but I think there's probably some things we can do to help minimize this on future projects as well.
If that could be turned into some sort of
Monetary.
a policy or with a
Non-performance.
some kind of non-performance policy, something like that would, but of course we have to set the standards first, so that needs to be said, but.
Right.
I think going forward, if we can work towards that, that would be.
Right. We've got some concepts for some pre-construction, and prior to allowing them to start out there, we want to be, we always have a meeting ahead of time with all of the utility companies and everybody that needs to be the players that are engaged. I think we need to step that up a little bit and have them telling us or giving us something in writing that they're under contract and ready to move and can meet that schedule accordingly. They're always at the table, but I think we're just going to wrap that up one more step. So,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Seeing none, next item up is new business. First is fiscal year 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or as we affectionately refer to it, CAFR. Well, not really affectionately, but that's what it's called.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a second here. Okay. Usually in years past, what I've done is I've went over the financial statements, but as the second year we went through with Anderson Brothers here locally, I have 3 letters, and the last couple of years I've failed to explain what these letters are and what they really mean. You can dive through a lot of them, but some of them, the jargon kind of repeats, and it's kind of unclear what it is. So this time, instead of going through everybody as a side-by-side comparison, which the fiscal years, which I really enjoy, and some people do as well, but I have them on the website if anybody wants to look at the actual statements. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through the letters. This year was the second year we had Anderson Brothers come in, their local CPA firm. What they had done is each year they plan on focusing on different areas on the audit. They don't tell you, it's a surprise when they get here. So this year they decided to go through our depreciation, which is our fixed assets, our receivables, which is money that's owed us through utilities, and also the state has required that each municipality record a portion of the PERSI. If the PERSI was to go bankrupt, what would that local portion be? So there's calculations to go along with that, and we have to report that on our financial statements. So in the first packet, in the first letter I gave you was basically their management letter. They come in and they say what they're going to look at, and that's on the government-wide financial statements. They mention the depreciation with fixed assets. They mention the receivables, and they also mention my calculation for net pension liability, if it's accurate. I'd have to say when they're here, on the other areas they dig in, but these particular areas they focus really intense on. They rotate, like I said, every year. They don't tell you ahead of time so you can prepare. It's here we are, here's what we're going to look at. The next part is my disclosures, what I list in the financial statements and the notes. The first one they looked at is our debt. The city has debt mostly for solid waste. For the wastewater plant, they want to make sure that the debt is listed correctly on the financial statements. If anybody wants to buy those bonds, the bondholders can look at our financial statements and see what's outstanding. They look at that and make sure I reported that correctly. The other portion is the pension, and this is also, even though the Post Falls Urban Renewals is a separate entity, they're also reported on our financial statements because they're part of the city of Post Falls, so I have to list them on there as well. So they go through that as well, which ironically they're the same auditors for the urban renewal, so that made it easy, so they were more familiar with that as well. They also wanted to let you know, as the government board, if there was difficulties they encountered during the audit, say I wasn't cooperative, staff was withholding information. They go around and sometimes they do random interviews with department heads and ask if there's any kind of fraud they should be aware of that would affect their audit. They will let you know that in their letter. There was none. If they had a disagreement with management on some items, there was none. They also want to know if I go out and shop for a second opinion, say I've hired another auditor to give me their opinion based on what Anderson Brothers had said. Well, no, I did not, and they will disclose that to you as well. And that's in the first letter of the management letter. The second letter they provide is talking about the financial statements. And they go through all of our funds. Each fund is a legal entity, general fund, the wastewater, water, sanitation. They make sure that the money that comes in for those are used what they're intended for. Wastewater can only be used for wastewater, water for water. A lot of times what happens is other municipalities that the general fund's not as strong as we have one here, they will pull money out of the utilities fund to supplement the general fund. They check for that. That fortunately has not happened here. So, but they make sure that I'm using the money that we're supposed to and how we're supposed to. On the second page, it's kind of buried. You would think it'd be on the front page, but in their opinion, they said that the financial statements that I have prepared are presented fairly and accurately. So that's basically what I'm looking for when they leave the building, is if that's the case. Also, the last letter that they provide is for internal controls. They want to make sure basically that whoever's receiving cash is not doing the bank reconciliation. They want to make sure that whoever's paying bills aren't sending up their own vendors. They're not receiving money. They want to make sure there's a segregation of duties. And so they also said that our internal controls are strong. Then once we go through all of that, then we get to the financial statement portion of with our activity. I didn't want to go through all of this, but both the CAFR, the city of Post Falls has received the GFOA award for the financial statements for 20 years, which is quite an accomplishment, really. And the PAFR, there's only 2 cities in the state of Idaho that do a PAFR, which is a popular annual financial report. It's just a reduced version of the CAFR, kind of a quick and dirty for anybody who wants to hit the highlights. I have to say this is a collaborative effort. I don't do the narratives on my own. Planning, PD, the Parks Department, they all contributed. It is a team effort, and I really appreciate that. And then once we get the financial statements all done, I hand it to the media center, and they make it look pretty. Dave said pretty doesn't count. Pretty does count. So if you look through, Kit did the graphic work, and Stephanie's helped her with this. They put it in flip book form. I'll thank her for that ugly picture there.
Well, what'd they have to work with?
Yeah, I know. She could have made it a little smaller like those.
Don't blame Kit.
Yeah, I know, right? So she's added lifestyles and recreation. She's taken the narratives that I had in the CAFR, made some pretty pictures along the way, talked about the parks. She's also taken, along with Stephanie's help, talks about, here's a service call. She actually put, people like to look at pretty pictures, so that she put the numbers to pictures, made it more reader-friendly, so it's not just black and white numbers. And we get this year after year when the auditors have set down the financial statements. They set down Post Falls, kind of buried under the rest of them. Everybody will dig to look at the Post Falls one because, sorry, Dave, it is pretty. So and that interests them and then they look and see how the financial statements are. So I just wanted to know if there's any questions on.
Any questions to Jason?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay.
Having been in banking for 40 years, numbers, and I like numbers like you
do too, yeah.
And I like money, and I like the fact that this is one of the cleanest audits I've ever seen. So
it's one thing that's really nice is the auditors that we have. We use them as a resource. A lot of times I only go to conferences because we don't have a lot of resources to build on. A lot of times the GASB, which is the government body for the government accounting, they have pronouncements but they don't tell you really how to implement them. So when you go to, I'm coming to GFOA, the big Government Finance Officers Association conference in LA, it's a big conference. There's 20,000 people there. So when you go to the conference, you have to kind of worm your way through to find out what you need to look at. But we have a resource here in Post Falls that does the auditing. They use it. I can use them as a guide on how do I implement the net pension liability. That wasn't. They just said, okay, well, come up with a calculation and determine what's Post Falls share. Well, that's kind of gray. So it was an effort on how do I implement. They assisted. Implemented financial statements. They reviewed my work, and off we went. So it is a good partnership we have.
That's great, because I know working with the government, sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
Until they actually come in and audit and say, no, you're doing this incorrectly.
Right.
And there was no prior knowledge to how to actually do it correctly. So to read through this and find that there was no questions, I was like, I wonder if he's doing too good a job.
And we had, I do have to say, there was one, it was the 11th hour, and we had one item that Tony had found that needed an adjustment, and it was like $3,000. I said, I'm not redoing all the statements, it's immaterial. So we agreed to pass, and off we went, so.
Good job.
Hey, Jen, on the pension liability, was that something new passed by the legislature or by the Percy Board for
It was
cities?
the Government Accounting Board, I believe it's GASB 68. They had said whatever your pension system is, like when California's went bankrupt, they wanted to know what portion of the local entities, what portion belongs to Post Falls. And so if Percy was to need the money, how much would I have to give them in order to make the pension system whole? Because a lot of times, I believe the last I read was Percy is 94% funded. A lot of them are not that high.
Yeah, because everything I get from Percy, they're one of the more solvent.
They're one of the more solid ones.
United States.
So we're in a good system,
So-
but it's for the systems that have crashed when people are still counting on their pensions to come through.
So it's more, they have a backup plan in case something happens.
Yeah, and what would that look like for Post Falls on the balance sheet if something were to happen?
It did happen,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Any comments, questions? Well, nice job.
Thank you.
We
Very
do
good.
need action on this?
Yeah, you do need action.
You need to accept it, correct?
Yes.
Move to approve the fiscal year 2018 comprehensive annual financial report.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next item up under new business is adding additional service agreement with JUB Engineers for the outfall and river crossing.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Craig Bornpole, Utilities Manager. I'm here to speak with you this evening on our outfall and river crossing project and request approval for an additional services agreement with JUB Engineers. So as a little background overview of the water reclamation facility and our outfall, and we're in the design and planning phase for replacing that outfall and also putting a line across the river to be able to service the community forest property with reuse water when available. So the history, September of last year, there was a contract signed with JUB Engineers for design and a design services contract with JUB. In February of this year, we brought on board McMillan Jacobs as our construction manager, general contractor, and that was done to really try and mitigate the risk of this project. Anytime we're working in the river, there's going to be some inherent risk to that. So we felt it was appropriate to bring them on board to mitigate that risk. And ongoing, now through August of this year, we're in design, trying to develop a full set of design plans with deliverables at 60% and 95%. We're working towards that 60% right now. We're still hoping for construction summer low flow season of next year. So the need for this additional services, the original concept, and I wish gentleman from Avista was still here. I'd thank him for his graphics of what an open trench looks like versus boring underneath. So the original concept was for an open trench installation of the reuse line to get to the other side of the river. We figured while we're already doing work in the river, maybe we can just extend it along the way. So evaluating that, there's some additional environmental risk with disturbing the bed of the river. And it looked like we would not be able to complete that work in one construction season as we had hoped. It would likely take 2 seasons, do about half from one side, come back the next low flow year, and come back the other from the other side. So our construction manager, general contractor, talked to us about the possibility of doing a horizontal directional drill underneath the river to completely stay out of the bed for that reuse line. And that would allow for possibly a longer construction season window where we aren't impacting the river. We can work and less impact to the Spokane River as a benefit to that. So they talked to some of the firms that they have worked with that have done drilling and boring said that with the information that we have on the subgrade soils, is that enough for you to provide us a bid or information on this project? The answer basically came back, no. We need more information if we're going to propose boring underneath the river. So that's what this work would be doing, is getting a better understanding of the subgrade soils, depth of bedrock. They really like to actually drill in that bedrock, gives them a good core. So they want to know exactly where that starts, get a little more information. So this is smaller than actually I would have hoped, but what they were asking for is 4 holes, 2 on the south side of the river and 2 on the north side of the river. We said, are 4 necessary? Can we get away with 2? And they say, we won't know until we start doing some of that work, but we'll get 1 hole. If we get real good information, then we can move to the other side of the river. If not, then we'll try and get a little more with a second hole on each side of the river. So the proposal is, here's where our existing outfall approximately is. 1 hole, with this one being optional, and on the north side of the river, start with this hole, and a second one being optional. So the geotechnical evaluation is needed if we want to move forward with design, permitting, cost development of this project. Up to 4 test holes. Like I said, we're hopefully not going to need 4, but we're coming to you asking for up to 4. And that additional services contract with JUB is not to exceed $81,400.
Funds come from?
From our water reclamation replacement fund.
Avista just recently did pretty much the same thing, right?
Correct, yeah. So they were, and I wonder if is it far out enough? It's not quite. So they were on the
they were right under the bridge.
Side, yeah, of the bridge. So we are utilizing some of that information. And we're hopeful that if we get consistent answers with our initial bores on the closest to the bank, if that matches some of the information, then that gives them a little more confidence. They're not going in completely blind.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious whether we were partnering with Avista to give us some information.
We are, yeah. They've been great, and we had good contacts to get some of that information from them to help clear the picture. Anytime we don't know what's going on underground, I mean, a contractor is going to just increase their risk or increase their bid price to cover that. So we're hopefully mitigating some of that by getting this information for them earlier.
Any comments? And once again, we need action on this.
I'd move to approve the additional services agreement with JUB Engineers for the outfall and river crossing.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Anthony?
Aye.
Borders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Thorson?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, Tullamore overflow upgrades, recommendations of award.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Andrew Arbini, Utilities Project Manager. So last fall, staff presented an engineering and construction oversight contract with TO Engineers for the upgrade of the Tullamore lift station, and that included overflow improvements. Tonight's presentation is a presentation of the bid results and request for bid award to the low bidder. Just a quick recap of the project. This is located along Highway 41, just west of Highway 41 off Bogey Drive. Tullamore Lift Station serves that residential area. As a project history and a recap on this, this was included in the 2017 Northeast Quadrant study that was performed by JUB. So as I mentioned, this adds emergency overflow storage. It will be upgrading a pump and then improving the electrical controls within the facility. So all of this work is contained within the site. And then the project costs will be reimbursed by the Post Falls Urban Renewal Agency. This is one of 3 projects that was identified in that Northeast Quadrant study Highway 41, 12th Avenue, Lift Station, and Tullamore. So with this project, given the estimated cost, we were able to utilize the informal bid process. That included the city reaching out to 4 contractors requesting a bid for this work. One contractor declined to bid. It was a result of workload and they were not able to bid. So we received 3 bids. You can see Big Sky Corporation was the apparent low bid for $97,462. Engineer's estimate for this project was $94,526, approximately 3% over the engineer's estimate. But after city staff review and TO's review, we believe that's representative of the current construction climate and what we're seeing currently. So after TO's review and looking at Big Sky's bid, they determined that it was a responsive bid and are recommending the award to Big Sky. So the contract award is for $97,462. And with this, we are requesting an additional 10% contingency in the event we have unforeseen conditions, any changes to the contract. And that would be authorized by the Public Works Director or his designee. So total requested amount this evening is for $107,208. We will be, after approval, we will bring the contract for signature, for mayor's signature at a later date, likely later this week. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm available to answer those.
Andrew, there's a huge price difference. Are you comfortable with Big Sky, and do you think the others are just too busy, or what's your thought?
That was exactly what we saw as well. And unfortunately, we don't have a clear answer. It's hard, it's difficult to tell what contractors are looking at and what they include, how they structure their price. There's some flexibility in how they structure that out. TO did contact Big Sky and asked them about their bid. And they confirmed that that is their bid, and all of their requirements were met. So it is deemed a responsive bid.
That was my question, Andrew. When I looked at it, it seemed like the biggest discrepancy was the 3,300 gallon precast emergency storage tank. I mean, it's almost like $100,000 difference.
Right. And so that's some of the structure that contractors will, in how they prepare their bid. Sometimes the pricing isn't always representative of that line item. It also depends on where they're getting that material at. It's hard to say exactly what that is showing.
That was the only concern I had. It was just so much lower than the other 2 companies. But if you're comfortable with that.
Any other comments?
I will just add that these 3 contractors are contractors that I know TML and SNL have done work with us. I believe Big Sky has in the past. I know they have a reputation in the area and have done a lot of work, a great reputation. So as far as contractors and working with all 3, these are ones that do have a presence in the area.
Okay. Thank you.
I can appreciate, too, that it's really tough to go back and say, why were you so cheap? Because
Yeah.
Now
we know. Oh.
Well, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the Tullamore Overflow Upgrades recommendation of award to Big Sky ID Corp.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Orders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Thorson?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, revision of cemetery rules and regulations.
Mayor, Council, glad to be before you again tonight. Took me a little bit because I had to keep up with the rest on the pretty pictures. So I'm before you tonight to request some policy changes with the cemetery. To back up just a little bit so you know where we're coming from, the expansion plans of the Evergreen Cemetery came before Council in the fall of 2014. Trust me, it seems like it was even longer than that, but since that time, we did survey work and design after the council directed staff to do the expansion and look at moving the operation shop and everything. So we relocated the maintenance shop, we did more survey work and more. We did site clearing, construction of the fountain was the next thing, installation of all the infrastructure, irrigation, pipes, roadway. Seeding of the first section has been completed last fall, and installation of the first niche, which brings us to the proposed changes. About every 3 years, we do go through and review our cemetery regulations, make sure they're still working, that they're functioning the way we anticipated. But with this expansion and some of the changes, 3 areas we felt needed to be addressed. One was the size of memorials and monuments, and that was for sections around the fountain. The second one was for multiple burials, and we're looking at double depth burials. We've had a lot of requests. It's very popular, but in the old section, we could not find a way to reduce our costs, and the fact we had so many trees and big monuments that it made it difficult. This new section is fairly open, so we think that it makes sense. It also doubles our capacity in there. Doesn't double revenue, it's about 1.6 on revenue. And the final thing is just housekeeping. So it really doesn't have to do with necessarily the new addition, but scattering, we did have regulations on it, but we needed to add ossuary items, which is it's a tube that ashes are commingled in. You do it in a scattering garden, and just how we address the cremated human remains. To give you an idea what we're talking about when I said the section for the monuments, we're looking at keeping them low, and it's just that area right around the fountain. And in our current regulations, you can go up to just under 4 feet. So putting in big monuments around that would block that view and part of the enjoyment of it. So we're regulating them down to a level about 2 feet that we felt would still keep the view on it. And then we are talking about, oops, there, just right now, this is only section, the first section here, that is open. The other parts are still being cleared and they'll be seeded, but we will not be selling any lots for that. If this is approved tonight, these recommendations, it'll come back to you as a resolution for formal approval at the next council meeting. Also, in addition to that, there will be a fee hearing that will be coming forward afterwards, and that will cover the costs of areas around the lots. It'll cover the cost of double depth and some of those opening and closing costs. So I'm open to any questions.
Questions, Dave? Okay.
Great.
State veteran cemeteries do the double burials, the double depth.
We have not in our section.
Right, but I mean, state veteran cemetery.
Yes.
So it's not an uncommon thing, and I think
No.
it's, yeah. I like that you're including that in that new section because you can.
Right, and you're right, it's very common. We just had some unique challenges up in the north part that just, it wasn't cost effective for the city to do it.
I can understand.
Looked at 3.8, 3.9, the scattering of cremated humane. Do you get many requests for that? Because you have in there, there's a fee for that.
Yeah.
So do you,
It's more for regulations. We get a lot of scattering.
do you?
And not all cremations are really well cremated. So there is cleanup, and so staff knows when stuff is being done. One of the trends, though, in the industry is creating like a formal garden where people can do it and scatter it and have memorials. We're still going to have some people that will go and spread it on their grandfather's grave or grandmother's grave or their parents' grave, or we recognize that, but there's still people that will come through there, and we're trying to regulate, so you have to look at the site for everybody. It's CC and Rs,
Yeah.
if you will.
Do we have a motion to come forward?
I'd move to approve the revision of the cemetery rules and regulations.
Second. Motion second. Further discussion? Shannon, please take the roll.
Borders.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job, Dave.
Next item up is addendum 1 to the purchasing and sale agreement with Liberty Bankers.
The team is letting me down.
I think my lawyers let me down. Can I make a call?
You've been pretty quiet tonight, Warren.
I say we haven't heard from Warren.
All right, I guess I'm handling this one. So we recently entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Liberty Bankers for property along the Spokane River over at the landing site in order to construct an esplanade. As we started doing the survey work to actually define a boundary for the purchase, it became apparent that the electronic survey data that we started off with, that the county has, it's actually rotated slightly from what you find on the ground. And so when you actually go out and survey it, you find these little pockets that open up that are left between what Liberty was going to retain and what the city was going to acquire. So we needed to close those pockets in, and we need to acquire about 5,000 additional square feet. We've spoken with Liberty about that. They're amenable to that at the same purchase price as the rest of the property. You've got that information in your packet showing the additional areas that we're acquiring. You see that they're mostly just little slivers as we're cleaning up the property boundary between the two ownership groups. So, sorry, I don't have any pictures, not even pretty pictures, but that's kind of what we're up to.
Well, and that follows up on previous discussions we've had, and it still comes down to the amount of money that we'll spend on the land for this park and the amount of park we will get back because of Vista's involvement is a huge return on our investment.
Yeah, we continue to meet with the Vista. We're meeting with them again in the morning. We continue to move forward on the design of the project.
Okay. Any comments? We need a motion on this addendum.
Move to approve addendum 1 to purchasing and sale agreement with Liberty Bankers.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Ordinances and resolutions. Tonight we have none. Administrative staff reports. None. Mayor comments. I guess as the weather has finally gotten nicer, you're going to have a bunch of littles running around on the streets. And as always, be careful. Watch where you're driving. Adults don't make good decisions on roads, and kids, probably don't make good decisions either. So, be on the lookout for them. Let's protect the little ones as they're out on the roads. Council comments. Jerry.
And if you said this and I didn't hear you, did you mention the Mother's Day breakfast at Post Falls Lions with the senior
Did not, thank you.
Okay. Sunday, Mother's Day, they've been doing this for about 40 years. The Post Falls Lions Club treats all mothers, grandmothers, anyone who has a child of any age for free breakfast, and kids under 5 are free. Anyone else is $7. And the really interesting thing is, and I cannot think of his name, but the Lions International president from Korea chose to make Post Falls one of his places he's visiting. So he will be here Saturday and Sunday, but he will be at the Mother's Day breakfast. So interesting thing.
Did you mention place?
$7 if you're not a mother
No.
or a child under 5.
Location?
Oh, place, I said price. Oh my gosh, Post Falls Senior Center, thank
Good,
you.
thank you.
It takes a village up here. So happy Mother's Day, but yeah, so that was an interesting little addition to the Mother's Day breakfast is the Lions Club International president from Korea is in town.
Thank you. Al, you had?
I was just curious whether the chief had anything to say, because every other department had got to play tonight, and you didn't, so.
And do you have pictures?
You're good, though, right? Okay. All right, just checking.
Anyone else? Steve?
Got a comment. I'd like to take the moment to introduce Caleb Carter. He's attending our meeting tonight. It's working on his Eagle badge, and part of it's a civics lesson to come to a council meeting and see how city government works. And also, I'd like to have him step up to the podium and explain a little bit about his Eagle Scout project, and hopefully he'll expand to other areas. So, Caleb, you'll have to reintroduce yourself. And
Mayor, council members, my name's Caleb Carter, and I'm with Troop 202, and we meet in Coeur d'Alene every Thursday. Lately, I've been working on my Eagle project. I've been partnering with the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department per Deputy Chief Bill DeRuyter. I don't know if you've met him or not. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be holding a fundraiser on May 16th at Anchored Coffee Company to raise funds to build Stop the Bleed emergency bleeding kits. And we're going to put one in every single classroom in the Coeur d'Alene School District.
Awesome.
And this is in the hopes of potentially saving the life, and God forbid a school shooting happens in our school district.
Thank you.
Very good.
Welcome and best of luck on your project.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to stop by and share it with us.
Yeah, no problem. If any of your questions, I'm here to take a couple afterward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
We do need an executive session tonight. To last how long?
20 minutes.
Move to enter into executive session pursuant Idaho Code 74-2061F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of illegal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but intimately likely to be litigated, that no action will be taken, and that the session should last approximately 20 minutes.
Second.
You actually understand that?
I'm in there. I read it.
Oh, okay. No, you did great. No, you did great. I'm just thinking the way it was worded. Motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Orders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll enter executive session.
To adjourn.
Call the meeting back to order. Are there any motions to come forward?
Adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.